Chapter 3. Allegra 3. In England, I went back to school and my studies, but I didn't forget Allegra. I wrote letters to her and sent some small presents. She didn't answer my letters, but I said to myself, well, she's only 5. Perhaps she can't write letters yet. Then, a year after our holiday in Italy, a letter arrived from Margaret Henderson. First, she thanked me for my letters and presents. Then she wrote, "I'm sorry that we didn't write to you, but it has been a very bad year for us. It is difficult for me to write now, but today is April the 21st, and I want to tell you that something terrible happened on the same day last year. Chiara and I are still very sad, and Chiara has been ill. She doesn't eat much, and she doesn't want to speak to anybody. Now I'll tell you why. A week after your holiday, our little Allegra got a fever. A few days later, the fever was worse, and we called the doctor. He said that he wasn't sure what the fever was. Perhaps she drank some bad water or ate food that was bad, he told us. He gave her some medicine, and she was better. But then the fever returned very quickly. We couldn't find the doctor, and when he arrived, it was too late. Our dear little Allegra died on April the 21st, a year ago. Oh, it's like a terrible dream. Our darling child was only 5 years and 3 months old. Now she has gone, and she will never come back to us. When I read this, I was shocked. Allegra dead. I felt very sad, and I began to cry. For a long time, I just couldn't believe it. I remembered her face, her voice, and her child's talk. I remembered our games and our conversations. Allegra came back to me like a ghost, and I was very unhappy. When I was 18, I went to university to study Italian, but I often remembered Allegra and that strange week at the Villa Henderson. How could I forget it? And I often thought about Allegra's strange words. I want to see my daddy before I die. How did she know that she was going to die? And then there was the ghost Allegra in my room saying, I want to see my mama before I die. What did it all mean? I wanted to find the answer to this mystery. But how? In spring, I went to Italy for my studies, and I stayed in Florence with an Italian family. They had a little daughter. When they told me her name, I couldn't believe my ears. We wanted a different name, the mother told me. A name that you don't often find in Italy. Allegra came to me suddenly. It's a beautiful name, and we hoped that she would be a happy child. But she isn't happy. She's a strange girl. I looked at the child. She was tall. Her face was pale and beautiful. She had long brown hair and brown eyes. How old is she? I asked. She's 5. 5? Are you sure? I mean, is she? I said, stupidly. Yes, 5. The mother looked at me strangely. Can I ask you when she was 5? I mean, when is her birthday? The mother looked surprised. In January. Why? But please, tell me the exact day. You see, I'd like to buy her a present next year. Now the mother was smiling. She was born on January the 21st. When I went to my room that night, I was afraid, and I didn't go to bed. I was thinking about Allegra Henderson. She died on April the 21st, when she was 5 years and 3 months old. So she was born on January the 21st too. Was it possible that this Italian Allegra had the same name, the same birthday, the same age? I couldn't sleep, so I tried to read a book about some English poets in Italy, but I couldn't. I was waiting. She came at midnight. I looked at my watch, and then she was there in a dark corner of the room. A beautiful, blonde child, her skin like milk, her eyes like the blue of an Italian sky. She wore a long white nightdress. Allegra. Will you take me to my mamma? She asked in her beautiful English. She's at Bagno a Wipoli. It isn't far from here. I was very afraid now, and I shouted, Go away! Go away! But she came and stood by my armchair. I want to see Mamma before I die. Take me, she said angrily. I ran out of that room very fast. Next morning, I decided to go to Bagno a Ripoli. I drove there in my small Fiat 500. There were only a few houses and a small church called Santa Maria dell'Antella. I went into the church, but there was nothing special about it. Then I walked around the small cemetery behind it, but I didn't see anything different, so I decided to go back to Florence. When I was going out of the cemetery, I saw a tombstone with some English words on it. I stopped and read, Here lies Claire Claremont, died in Florence, March the 19th, 1879, aged 81. The name, Claire again. The name of the ghost Allegra's mother. I was very surprised, but I still didn't understand anything. In Florence that afternoon, I decided to go to a bar and read the book about the English poets. And while I was reading about Byron and Shelley, I began to understand the mystery of Allegra. Chapter 4. Lord Byron's Daughter. This is what I read. On January the 21st, 1817, Claire Clairmont, 19 years old, had a baby daughter in a town called Bath in England. The baby's father was the poet Lord Byron, but he was not Claire's husband. They were lovers for a while, but then Byron went to Italy. He did not love Claire, and he did not want to be with her. So Claire lived with Byron's friends, the poet Shelley, his wife Mary, and their 2 children. Claire and Mary were half-sisters. They had the same father, but different mothers. Shelley liked children very much, and he felt a strong love for Claire's baby. He hoped that his friend Byron would help Claire and her daughter. From Bath, he wrote to him, "Claire has a very beautiful girl. Her hair is fair, and her eyes are blue. Claire calls her Alba." Byron wanted to see his baby daughter, and he asked Shelley to bring her to Italy. Shelley wanted to live in Italy too, so he and his family, and Claire and her baby, all travelled there. The baby was a year old, and now she was called Allegra, because Byron liked the name. In Italy, Claire decided to give Allegra to Byron, because she thought that the daughter of an English lord would have a good future. Shelley said to her, "No, don't do it, Claire, or you will never see your daughter again." But Byron was rich, and Claire thought that Allegra would have a better life with him. Of course, she did not want to give Allegra to Byron, and when she sent the child to him in Venice, she was very unhappy. In a letter to a friend, she wrote, "In the spring of 1818, I sent my little darling to her father. She was the only thing that I loved in the world." It was a terrible mistake. Allegra lived with her father in a big house called the Palazzo Mocenigo. It was full of strange animals and even stranger people. After a while, Lord Byron understood that it was not a good home for a child, so he gave Allegra to an English family in Venice, and in August Claire saw her there. Then Byron said that Claire and her baby and Shelley's family could stay at his villa near a town called Este. For 2 months, Claire was happy there with Allegra. But Byron also said that she must bring Allegra to him in Venice in the autumn. So in October, Allegra went back to her father, and Claire never saw her again. Allegra stayed in Venice for 8 months with different families. Then Byron took her to the city of Bologna. He wrote to Shelley, "She is like me. She has white skin. Her voice is soft. And she can't say the letter R." For many months, he sent no news to Claire about her daughter. Then she heard that Allegra was with her father in a town called Ravenna. She wrote to him, "I want to see my daughter, please." But he said no. Claire wrote a lot of letters like this to Byron, but he did not answer them. She was very unhappy. When Allegra was 4 years old, Byron sent her to a convent school near Ravenna. The nuns were kind and loved her very much, but the convent was strange to her. The walls were white and cold, the rooms were empty, and sometimes she was cold because there was no fire. Every day she did the same things at the same time. This quiet life was very different from her life with Byron. Claire was now very angry. She did not like convent schools, and she was sure that Allegra was always cold and lonely. She wrote an angry letter to Byron. "My child must be with one of her parents," she said. He did not answer the letter. He thought that the convent was good for Allegra, and he told the nuns that Claire must never visit the child. They must lock the doors to stop her. But he said that Shelley could see Allegra, because he was his friend. So one day Shelley went to visit Allegra at the convent. He wrote in his diary, "She is tall and pale, but her eyes are very blue, and she has a lot of blonde hair. She is beautiful and very different from the other children. I ran and played with her in the garden. She is very light and fast. I gave her some sweets, and I asked her, 'What shall I say to your mamma?' She answered in Italian, 'Tell her to send me a kiss and a beautiful dress.' Then I asked her, 'What shall I say to your papa?' And she answered, 'Tell him to visit me, and to bring Mamma with him.' But Papa did not visit her, and Mamma did not come. On June the 6th, 1821, Claire dreamt that Allegra was ill. She thought that her daughter was going to die, and she would never see her again. "Take her away from the convent," she wrote to Byron, but he said no. Of course, Claire wanted to go to the convent and take Allegra away, but this was very difficult. Byron was a rich and famous lord, and the people in the convent did what he wanted. They locked the doors. And then Allegra got a fever. The doctor came and gave her some medicine. For a while she was better, and the nuns hoped that she would live. But she died on April the 21st, 1822. She was 5 years and 3 months old. Shelley was afraid to tell Claire that Allegra was dead. He thought that she would try to kill herself. But one evening, Shelley, Mary, and some friends were talking about Allegra when Claire came into the room. At once, everybody stopped talking, and she knew. "Allegra's dead, isn't she?" she said. So Shelley told her the sad story. She was very unhappy and wanted to die. Shelley was also unhappy. He loved Allegra like a daughter, and he could not forget her. 2 weeks after Allegra died, he was with one of his friends on the balcony of a house by the sea. Suddenly, he saw a child with long, fair hair and very blue eyes. She was coming out of the sea, and she was smiling at him. In the moonlight, he saw that she wanted to come to him. "Look, there it is," he said to his friend. "Can you see her? Look, there." But his friend saw nothing. It was Allegra's ghost. And 50 years after Allegra died, Claire wrote to a friend, "I can never forget my darling child." But did she really die? Byron and Shelley said that she died, but I have heard that she is alive. Some people say that they have seen her. I am sure that she is alive. Claire died in 1879 when she was 81 years old. Her tombstone is in the cemetery of Santa Maria dell'Antella at Bagno a Ripoli. Chapter 5. Bagno a Ripoli. After I read this strange, sad story, I understood the mystery of Allegra. Was she still alive? No. But her ghost was still in the world. The little girl in my room was the ghost of Claire Claremont's Allegra. She was unhappy, and she couldn't rest because she wanted to be with her mother, but she couldn't find her. She knew that her mother was at Bagno a Ripoli, but she didn't know how to get there. So her unhappy ghost lived and waited in the body of Allegra Henderson, Chiara's daughter. At night, it left Allegra's body and came to my room for help. Then, poor Allegra died of fever, just like Claire's Allegra. But the ghost couldn't rest. It had to find another child's body. "Who is the child?" I asked myself. Who is the next Allegra? Allegra 3. But I already knew the answer. My Italian family in Florence had a little daughter. Her name was Allegra, and she would be 5 years and 3 months on April the 21st. It was now the evening of April the 20th. I left the bar quickly and ran back to my family's house. When I arrived, the mother was crying. Allegra is in hospital, she told me. She's got a bad fever, and the doctors aren't sure what it is. Oh, I hope it isn't dangerous. I hope she'll get better soon. She'll be all right, I said. She'll get better. But that night, in my room, I said to myself, oh, please, no, no. I walked round and round the room, and I thought of my dear friend, Allegra Henderson. I was afraid that Allegra 3 was going to die the next day. But what could I do about it? No, this Allegra must not die, I said angrily. Then suddenly I knew what to do. I waited. 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, midnight. Please, please come, I said. I looked at my watch. 12:15. Will she come? Will she come? I said again and again. And then she was there, the ghost of Lord Byron's daughter, pale, beautiful, with big blue eyes and hair like gold. She was smiling at me. Are you going to take me to Mama? Yes, Allegra. We're going to Bagno a Ripoli, but we must hurry. Come on, let's go. She laughed happily. Oh, thank you. You're so kind. I took her cold little hand. We went out of the house and got into my car. I drove very fast through the night. Oh, I'm going to see my dear Mama, Allegra said. I'll be with her after all these years. We'll be so happy. I loved her, and she loved me. But Papa took me away from her, and he sent me to a convent school. I didn't like it there. It was so cold and quiet. Mama didn't come, and Papa didn't come. Why didn't they come? But then she laughed and began to sing an Italian song. When we arrived at Bagno a Ripoli, she jumped out of the car and looked around. Where is Mama? She cried. Follow me, I said. We went into the cemetery, and I took her to Claire Claremont's tombstone. She's here, I said. Your Mama is here. Allegra read the name on the tombstone. Mama, she called. Are you here? It's me, Allegra. I'm here. Your Allegra is here. She was crying with happiness. I was happy too, but I was also afraid. The cemetery was dark and silent. There was a soft wind in the trees, and in front of my eyes was this little child's ghost in a white nightdress, calling for its dead mother. "Yes, I hear you, Mama," Allegra cried. "I'm coming. I'm coming." And very slowly the ghost of Allegra began to disappear, and her voice was slowly going away. "Wait for me, Mama. I'm coming. I'm coming." And then the ghost wasn't there. Allegra was with her mother at